Well, greetings. This is Mr. Brown from ACS, Financial Fitness Coach, Financial Counselor at Army Community Service, Fort Stewart, Georgia Financial Readiness Program. Welcome you to another training session. Today we're going to talk about what to do when income drops. That's kind of a prevalent theme right now because many people are finding themselves facing unemployment throughout America. But there are other times when you find yourself where income drops. Example, you PCS from overseas. While you were overseas, you were receiving cost of living allowance, COLA. The extra COLA came in handy while you were overseas. That extra income goes away once you arrive here at Fort Stewart. Or maybe you were married and you and your spouse separated or got divorced. Income drops. Maybe your spouse was working and due to the coronavirus was laid off from work. All of these situations create an environment where income drops. I was doing a class early, a few months back when the virus first kicked off and everybody was, distance working and starting to go to a home. And a client called up and said, what do I do if I'm going to be getting out of the Army in the next 2 to 3 months? He recognized that his income was going to drop. So today, let's focus on what do we do when income drops. Take good notes. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to share with you some words of wisdom, some good experience, some practical insight on how you can make the adjustment and not only just kind of get by, but really become stable and remain focused and move forward when income drops. Okay, first thing I want you to do is when your income drops, I don't want you to panic. I want you to remain focused. That means I must maintain a positive outlook. In one of my earlier sessions, I dealt with that about keeping everything in perspective. Don't go into a crisis mode. Don't go into a meltdown. I want you to get this concept in your mind. I'm not going to play the blame game, the shame game, or the fear game. Watch this. Say it again. I'm not going to play the blame game, the shame game, or the fear game. I'm not going to blame anyone because my income dropped. I'm not going to blame myself and beat myself up because my income dropped. I'm not going to go into fear and shame and feel like I'm a failure. Adapt the mindset that no matter what is going on, you are a winner. So you are a winner and not a whiner because winners can adjust to loss and move forward. Whiners just keep on whining. So get the mindset, I'm a winner. I'm going to refocus. I'm going to regroup. I'm going to move forward and find a way to make progress even though things have changed and my income has dropped. So I want you to begin to assess where you are. Look at where you are. Look at the things around you. You may have lost some income, but what do you still have? And as my income has changed, how do I adjust my pace so that I can flow with where my income is right now? So total refocus, begin to readjust and rethink. Don't focus on what you've lost. Focus on what you have available. So look for options. For example, okay, my spouse has lost her job, or he is getting ready to get out of the Army. I'm still in the Army. He's getting out. Okay, what options do we have? We have less income, but maybe we no longer need to pay full-time daycare. Or maybe this is a great opportunity for my husband who has great skills at maybe repairing computers. Yeah, he may be great at fixing computers or doing some kind of handiwork. Even though the income has dropped from being in the Army, until we get back to a consistent level of pre-service loss of income, focus on what you can do to bring in some money. And my point on that is begin to repackage yourself. Don't see yourself as someone who is lost. See yourself as one now who is in position to make new gains and go in new direction. Look for opportunities. Someone could be hiring. A lot of soldiers, they'll get out of the Army in the springtime or before the fall semester starts in college. So between that gap in time, they're open to find other things to do. So begin to look at what opportunities are available for me during this short season of time where my income has gone through a short-term drop. Also, I want you to begin to look at what assets you have. For example, you may have an old vehicle that you don't drive. So, say for example, you have a car you have not driven in, or you hardly drive, and you're no longer working full time. Then you know what? If that car is paid for, that may be an asset that you can liquidate and put to work and find some money that can come back to adjust your cash flow back to where you were when at the level before you begin to lose. So you got to say, you know what? What assets can I liquidate? What do I have in savings? Do I have an old savings bond? Do I have an old CD? Do I have some money I put away in reserve? Don't focus totally on the loss. Begin to evaluate what assets are available. Let's say, for example, you were overseas and you picked up a couple cuckoo clocks, grandfather clocks, or anything you can liquidate to create some cash flow. Find something that's available to cause you to move forward and have extra income to help you to begin to reduce where you were at the time of your loss. Next thing I think is so important for those of you who are married is to have, I call it the family team meeting. We're going to sit down. We're not going to fuss. No blame game, no shame game, no argument, but we're going to discuss current cash flow. We were once at this level. Now we're at this level. How do we adjust? What do we begin to divvy up as to what is on the table that we both can sacrifice? Years ago, I was doing a workshop, and I was talking with a client who said that he did something like that, where he just decided where he was getting ready to, again, get out of the Army. So he says, you know what I'm going to do? He says, we'll have a team meeting, and everybody's going to give up something. One daughter was taking piano lessons and ballet. He says, you can only take one. Which one do you really want to take the most? She says, well, I'd rather take the ballet than piano, because the reason I took piano was because Mom wanted me to play the piano. That was an easy sacrifice to make. So everybody agreed to give up something in order to contribute back to getting the family at a level where they could continue to move forward and not have as much disruption. So that meeting is so important. So I want you and your spouse, if you have kids who are old enough to understand what's going on, let's have the team meeting to discuss the fact that we're going through a temporary time where we have to adjust what we're doing. It's not going to stay bad. It's not going to stay like this. But in the meantime, what do we all want to sacrifice to make sure everybody can stay afloat? So have that team meeting and everybody make a cut. Next thing, you don't think about it, but how many things are you paying someone to do that when income drops, you could do yourself? For example, maybe you're going to the detailer to get your car done, and those guys do a great job. But when income drops, it may be the time for you to get a bucket and some cleaning supplies and go outside and wash your own car. Maybe you pay someone to cut your lawn and to do all your trimming in the yard for you. When income drops, that may be something that may have to drop off the table, something that you've had others to do, now you can do yourself. So again, sit down, don't get into an argument, just think about it. What am I paying someone to do that I can do myself that could help replace the money that I'm now facing in my time of temporary shortage? All right. Now I want you to begin to think, if my money has been reduced, I must adjust my spending to match where my money is. So you're going to sit down and make a detailed, prioritized list of spending. And list everything in sequence. I always start at the top, shelter, so rent, mortgage. Make your list, detail out everything by priority, what needs to be done. And then once you list it, take the amount of money you have and say, okay, based upon the amount of money I have, how far does this go? Work your way down the list. And you want to, as you prioritize that, you want to also begin to look at, okay, if I have to give something up, what will it cost me to give up this particular item? And so there's things we can cut. We may have to adjust the cable. We may have to adjust our cell phone plan. What is it that we can make some short-term adjustments on to get us through this time period where our income has dropped? So, taking good notes on, because this is important. I know I'm going kind of fast, but I want you to get this, because if you have a plan, you can move forward. most people, when income drops, rather than having a plan, they go into a time of crisis and panic, and they start to fear, and that leads to them getting into more trouble. So we're gonna have a detailed plan. We're gonna write out, and I encourage you to, rather than trying to do the whole month's planning at one time, I want you to take the money as it comes in each pay period and prioritize what are we going to do this pay period, and try to make sure you have something left over to take into the next pay period. Because if there's something left to take over to the next pay period, that allows that next paycheck to have a little bit more cushion to fall on and be added to. And you may have to do some wise things, like, for example, I work with some clients who, when they come to see me at first, we're looking at everything in one pay period is totally lopsided. They have their rent, car insurance, 2 car payments on the first of the month. And that first paycheck, boom, is a knockout. And all of a sudden, if income drops, that pay period would be a disaster. So if we kind of even the load, so what we're going to do, we'll look at our expenses. Now that our income is dropped, we may need to adjust and put some things on the first of the month and the middle of the month to make them work out. So rather than paying both cars on the first, we'll pay 1 car on the first, 1 on the middle of the month. Or maybe here's what we'll do. We'll divvy it up. We'll knock out the rent, groceries, utilities on the first one. On the next paycheck, we'll do all our other stuff like car payments, car insurance. But in order to see that, you have to sit down and make a plan. I want you to resist the temptation of going into debt, because what a lot of people do is when money gets short like that, they immediately start to spend money on the credit card, which what they're trying to do is they're trying to maintain the same level of living that they had before income dropped. And they think, well, because income has dropped, what I'll do is I'll just keep using my credit card. My credit card will allow me to be able to maintain the same level of spending. The problem is you're taking yourself further and further in the hole. So you don't want to use the credit card to keep your lifestyle at the way you were before income dropped. What you want to do is you want to adjust your lifestyle to meet the pace in place where your income is. So watch that. That's an interesting statement. The pace and the place. If your money is moving kind of slow and where you are is kind of low, you can't go fast. It's kind of a common sense thing to me. You know, if you have a half a tank of gas, you probably aren't going to make it from here to New York unless you got one of these hybrid cars that has incredible gas mileage. But before, if you had a full tank of gas and you wanted to go from here to, I'll say Jacksonville, that may have been no problem. But as you have less gas, you can't go as far. Common sense. Same thing financially. If your money goes to a lower level, all you do is adjust the distance that you're going to try to travel on that money, and you cannot do as much as you did before. So you have to decide how far is my money going to take me before I get into serious trouble without going deeper into debt. Let's talk about the debt part of that. Let's say you already have debt, and this happens quite a bit to a lot of people who, when income drops, it would be nice if your income dropped and your creditor said, oh, we are so sad to hear your income is dropped, so we're going to adjust, we're going to not let you pay us until your money gets back right. That sounds nice, but that ain't going to happen. All right? You still have the debt, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to, again, list your debts in priority. We're going to put secured debt over unsecured debt. Explain that. All right, simple. A secured debt is something that the lender still has security and they can take to get their money back. For example, a car loan is secured debt. If you don't pay, their debt for the lender is that car, that item, they'll come and they'll take it. At least they have something they can put their hands on to try to get some of their money back. Credit card debt is unsecured debt. So my point is, priority, you want to try to focus on the secured debt before the unsecured debt. I also want you to consider looking at the fact that if my money has gotten real tight and I can't pay everybody their normal payment, don't ignore the creditors. Don't say, well, I'm just not going to pay anybody. This is the time to call them up and explain to them what's going on, and you'd be surprised how willing many of them are to help you. Here at ACS, we have counselors and coaches available to help you to negotiate that pathway, to help you to communicate with lenders. In fact, I would rather you come in and speak to one of us before you commit yourself to a higher payment than you probably can afford to pay. I've seen it happen over and over again. Someone has a loss of income because the spouse quits working, or worst case scenario, that they lose rank, and then they go out and they tell the creditor, well, I can't pay you now, but starting next month, I'll give you $100 a month. That $100 may not be there. So come in, sit down and talk to us. We can help you to determine how to navigate into rather taking out a debt elimination plan. We call it debt elimination or debt snowball, where we help you to come up with a plan where we give you workable strategies on how to get out of the debt. We can also assist you in trying to negotiate with your creditors about lower payments. We have had tremendous success over the years in helping soldiers during those times of crisis. And another thing, don't be tempted to go out and take out a loan to pay off the debt. A lot of these companies offer what they call debt consolidation. They take all your old debt, put it into one big debt, and then you say, okay, rather than paying 8 people, now I'm only paying one guy, and I'm paying him a lot less than I'm paying all the other people. And in your mind, I have extra money. The problem is that debt has been compiled together, and over time, at the end of the loan, when you do the math, you'll find out you end up paying more than you would have paid if you had simply worked out a payment plan with the credit that you owed, and the debt that you could have had knocked off, say, in 6 months. By putting it all together, 3 years later, you're still paying a 28% loan on the debt that could have been paid off. So when it comes to issues like that, I want you to come in and talk to us, particularly if you're considering bankruptcy. Before you talk to the attorney about bankruptcy, come in and see one of us at ACS, one of our counselors. We can help you to determine if that bankruptcy is going to be the best choice for you. I've discovered 90% of the soldiers that I've seen who took a bankruptcy, who did a Chapter 13 or Chapter 7, really didn't need to do it. It just seemed at the time like a good temporary pain, a plan that created long-term pain. So come in and talk to us. We can help you negotiate that. Just because your income dropped, don't go out and assume I have to take things, drastic measures like going for bankruptcy or taking out some high interest loan in order to pay these debts off. No, we are here to assist you in navigating and getting you on course to make sure that your plan allows you to move forward in your time of financial crisis. Another thing, I want to talk to you about taking loans out on your 401k plan. If your spouse was working and had a 401k plan, or you're on active duty and you have the TSP, which I hope all of you have. So if you have your TSP and your spouse has a 401k plan, recent legislation allows you to take up to $100,000 out of your retirement plan, which on the surface sounds great. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of people, millions of dollars have been pulled out in order for people to do that. Let's talk about how that could adversely affect you. First of all, if you, the benefit, as I would say, they say the benefit, the incentive is the 10% penalty is no longer on the table. So during this time period, if you take that money out, there's no 10% penalty. However, keep in mind, if you take the money out, you have now disrupted your plans for retirement in the future. I would rather see you lower the amount you're paying into your retirement plan rather than taking the money out. Another thing about that money, let's say, for example, you take out, we'll say $60,000 from a retirement account. Okay. Over the next 3 years, you'll pay taxes on that income because it would be counted as your income for the year, and they spread it out over 3 years in terms of your taxable liability on that withdrawal. So now you have taken out the money, you have created a tax burden for yourself. The next thing is where I think it really affects a lot of moderate to low income earners. You have now raised your level of income for the year. So as programs come available to allow incentive to help people out, you could take yourself from being in a moderate or low income category to a higher level. So that could really have adverse effect on you in the event of another future stimulus type program or any plans where income based decisions are used to determine your ability to tap into that program. Another thing is, if you borrow the money, you have up to 5 years to pay it back, and you pay back with interest. Some people don't like that, but the same token, I think the part of that you understand about the interest is you're only helping to rebuild the money you would have lost from your retirement account. And the odds are you'll never get back to where you were before, but it does help put more money toward retirement because you took the money out and you missed out on the growth opportunities during the time period where the money was not in place. The challenge with that is you're now paying back the loan. If it's TSP, you pay back whatever the current G-Fund rate is as the interest rate. Other accounts have other type plans where you pay that back. Low interest rate, but the problem you're going to incur is you're now paying that money back out of dollars that, number one, your income's already been shortened, and not only that, these are after-tax dollars. So your money's been taxed. Now you're taking that money and putting it on the retirement loan payback. Worst case scenario is if you lose a job or you're separated from the Army. Once you lose the job and you're no longer enrolled in the 401k plan, here's the big ouch people don't talk about is you now have 60 days to pay that money back. If you don't, you now have incurred yourself into a major kind of financial issue because that loan now changes from being just money you borrowed from your 401k plan or money you took from your future. So be very, very careful about doing it. If you decide I must take money from my 401k plan, sit down, do the math, only take out what you actually need. And before you would do that, I recommend you look at what can I do, what can I sacrifice to prevent myself from having to take money from my future retirement account just to get me through this short-term crisis. All right. Key things to take away from this. Number one, income has dropped for many people. There's reasons not only because of coronavirus, things like change of pay, change of duty station, separation from the Army. A lot of factors could be involved in having lower income. When your income drops, it doesn't mean that you diminish as a person. You don't become less as a person, just your money is dropped. So keep a positive attitude. Do some good planning. Work out very simple steps. Prioritize your spending. And if you need help, please give us a phone call at ACS Financial Readiness. Our number is 912-767-5058. My name is Kim Brown. I'm a financial counselor and coach at ACS. My motto is, if you call me, I will jump to serve you. God bless you, and God bless America.